And we are live.
We are live.
It's okay. We're going sans intro today.
We are going
because it is time. That is right, because it is time to get started. Jen, you want to do a little intro for our audience, and then I'll pop in with our guests?
I think you're going to have to. I'm just doing some tech troubleshooting right now.
Fantastic. Well, Jen is tech troubleshooting. Welcome to our Tuesday edition of MedTech Insights. We are a talk show, soon to become podcast as well, with the opportunity to invite innovators in the health sciences focused on digital health, medtech, biotech, and those who are really innovating, both in terms of investing in the right companies, running the clinical programs, or creating the tech and being the startups and entrepreneurs who are taking us into kind of the next generation of healthcare. As a note, we stream over 8 different sites, and we are attempting to do that from 2 remote locations today. So our apologies if the streaming is a little slow on the site that you are watching on. Dr. Joe and myself, when we are not doing MedTech Insights, are both clinicians. Dr. Joe is trained in nephrology and currently works in emergency medicine. I am trained in cardiology, working at the Massachusetts General Hospital with the American College of Cardiology. As a reminder, both Jen and myself, as well as our guests, are representing, however, our own original opinions and not those of the institutions with which we work or collaborate. So let me tell you where I am while Jen is doing some troubleshooting, because it is exciting. I am at the Sheraton Boston today for the 2nd MedExec Women's Conference. MedExec Women was started in 2019, and it was actually started by Lori Halloran and by Maria Shepard. And they started it with the concept that was really time to start bringing together C-suite and VPs who were women in the medtech industry to be able to do some networking and really cut across silos, thinking about investing, thinking about large companies, small companies, and clinicians, and bringing people together to think about what the future of innovation in medicine looks like. The first conference was in 2019. Because of COVID, there was a break, and this is the 2nd conference today. It is a bustling hall downstairs, so I'm upstairs in a conference room, but excited to have lots of great new friends downstairs who we will be bringing onto the show in the several upcoming months, so you'll have a chance to meet all of them. Of note, Lori Halloran, who runs this, will be on our show as we stream live from the Convergence Forum on Thursday and Friday of this week. So we will be back both Thursday and Friday mornings. Please keep an eye out on social media, and we'll tell you the exact timing and the guests who will be joining us. Other big things that are happening, the health conference was excellent, great opportunity to meet many of you, really exciting to have people who are in our audience virtually come up and introduce themselves in person. So thank you to all of you, and glad to make more personal and in-person connections. And then looking forward, we have the American Heart Association coming up. And before that, tomorrow is the Applied Health Innovation Consortium run by the American College of Cardiology. That is a virtual meeting this year. But excited to have industry partners along with clinicians thinking of how to, again, push that envelope of innovation moving forward. So today we have 2 guests with us. We have the SInDyXR CEO, Charles Kirby, who will be joining us, and we have Pounds Transformation CEO, Charles Cavo, and excited to have them both with us. And I think what we'll do today is we're going to bring them both on together, both for technical reasons and because they have a great partnership, and I think it'll be great to hear from them what they're doing, how they're doing it. And I think you're in for a real treat to see how virtual reality is actually being used successfully in practice, not in the future, but today. So let's bring on Charles and Charles. Excited to have you both with us, and thank you so much. Also, thanks for doing this on the move with us. We are not in our regular offices today, but really excited to introduce you guys to all of our audience. So maybe why don't we start, Charles Kirby, let's actually just start with you. Have you introduced yourself? Tell us a little bit about SInDyXR and more importantly, how you got there. And then we'll jump over to Charles Cavo next.
Sure. Thank you. You guys have regular offices? I don't know what that's like. I I am a 30-year freelancer. Started in the theater backstage running spotlight at high school, shows, and then went to undergrad at Syracuse where I did a whole BFA program, and then NYU and MFA program, which I have to say, those letters after my name, I don't know if I don't know what the letters after your name mean, but mine, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to share that, right? So Masters of Fine Arts, and that led me to just working on collaboration and any kind of technology that would bring me into the space that I could be with other people without having an office, pre-WeWork, right? Pre-internet, and now about, let's call it 10 years ago, I have twins, Anna and Max, who now are 21 years old. But anyway, about 10 years ago, it became apparent that their digital presence was significantly more important to them than their actual physical presence, and anybody that's raised these sort of like millennial Gen Z cusp types or worked with, that's that kind of age group knows that, I mean, I remember so clearly Anna said to me, my tweet is way more important than anything you have to come, talk about at the dining room table, Dad. So just forget it. And I thought, what's a tweet? I mean, literally, right? So I was, again, a tech theater guy, a filmmaker, and I started working with holograms and even old school magic tricks like Pepper's Ghost. And then that led directly to what has become now called XR, the sort of umbrella term for virtual reality, augmented reality, and, for lack of a better word, physical reality, like where so and SInDyXR is now a company that makes, we call them cubes. They're very similar to like Facebook workrooms and spatial, workspaces and Glue. There's some amazing companies that are doing this. And essentially, we got into the healthcare kind of world thanks to Dr. Cavo.
So Charles, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Our
So
audience,
that's my 2 cents. Right.
No, it was wonderful. And really hearing your arts background, which I have to say I didn't realize before, gives a lot of perspective to your interest now in XR and in your ability to connect people. So when you say a cube, everybody in the audience is doing a little bit of a huh. So will you tell us what the technology is behind XR before we talk about how we use it at Pounds?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so there's 2 sides, hardware and software, as with everything that we've all been dealing with since, Gates and Jobs did their work in their garages, and even, Hewlett and Packard before that in their garages, right? So essentially, SInDyXR is just simply software, and I'd love to focus on that. But let's talk a little bit about the hardware, because there's a lot of different things you just kind of understand. Is that your question, Dr. Bhatt? Right?
Yeah, or if you have a sample of how this could be done, you could hold something up and share with us as well, so that the audience can picture what it is that you walked into Charles Cavo's office and said, here, take this and run with it, before Charles tells us what he did.
Okay, 100%. And just by the way, I have a couple videos that we could go through. They're each about 3 or 4 minutes long, and I'll defer to you. But yes, I walked into, well, we were in a lockdown, and Dr. Cavo's family was in at his house with 3 teenage boys and his amazing partner and wife and CEO of the company, co-founder. And I walked in and I said, if you do this, and you believe that you're in a totally immersive space that could actually help you exercise and meditate and track your heart rate and keep up with your glucose level at the moment that you were in one of these, would that help?
Okay.
And he said, well, Dr. Cavo, please. I mean, there's 100 of other devices. I took one of these and I said, well, if I measure my EKG or EEG, I can't remember all the acronyms, you guys know better than I do, but if I can measure these 3 electrical dots on my forehead while I'm, talking about it, Like,
It
what do
feels
I
like you're
learn?
putting something in your head and you're like, I'm seeing waves on a screen and it might be a seizure and it
I
may
love
be
it.
not.
So,
100%. And that's what this piece of glass is for, right? Oh, look,
This is
waves.
innovation, guys.
Wow.
This is innovation.
this is
Creativity and
here.
And it goes on.
Jen might be joking a little bit, but I'm very serious. This is innovation, right? This is Charles Kirby saying, I can do this stuff. I can create whatever you need for you, and then saying, I don't know so much what you need. What do you need? So let's turn it over to Charles, because for the clinicians in the room, they're dying to know, so what did you do? So Dr. Cavo, maybe give us just like a minute of background on how you got to where you are, because we have so much we want to talk about, and I know we're time limited today. But
Yes.
a little bit of background on how you got here, and then tell us what you're using SInDyXR for.
Yeah, so quick background, I guess, on how I got here was I was in OBGYN for almost 20 years, and people were just getting more unhealthy, and babies were getting bigger, and pregnancies were getting more complicated, and all was just basically because there are so many broken metabolic people. And so we opened up a practice that really specialized in metabolic rehabilitation, and made amazing acquaintances. We ended up in a movie called The Magic Pill, which was a Netflix international documentary. And from there, we made a lot more contacts, and were introduced more to people who had forward thinking with regards to where we were going with management strategies for chronic disease. So in any case, some of the stuff that we do in our practice is a little bit more cutting edge. And that's kind of how Charles Kirby and I came back together full circle, because while he was at Syracuse getting his degree in theater, I was at Syracuse trying to figure out what I wanted to get my degree in altogether. So he reached out to me when COVID was going on, and he's like, look, I'm watching what you're doing, and I have an amazing opportunity, I think, for your practice to sort of sink their teeth into. He didn't tell you that he's also an amazing storyteller. And so he told me the story as to how he got to where he was, and I was like, man, I got to try that. And so we speak clearly different languages, because while he was busy telling you things about software and hardware, I was like, man, if there are any doctors listening to this, they might be a little bit confused and scratching their head. And I was there, one of those doctors scratching my head. But he was able to break down what his vision was, and then he created this vision so I could actually see it come to life. And I got to tell you, the experiences that we've had with what he's been able to do in both augmented reality, so I got that term right, and virtual reality is really interesting, and it clearly is a direction that medicine should and could go very quickly.
Charles, going back a step, I love how you refer to it, first of all, as metabolic rehabilitation. That phrase is an excellent one. If you haven't coined it, you need to grab that one, right? Because I think we have we have weight centers, we have obesity clinics, we have endocrine practices, we have cardiologists who are dealing with that, right? But I think your point is well taken, that we have a metabolic problem that we're dealing with. And as the audience knows, my interest in kind of cardiovascular disease and complications in pregnancy is immense, because I see it all the time. And I can almost see, when we first met and you said I was an obstetrician who then went and started my own metabolic rehab. It took me a moment to understand, how you got there, but sometimes you see a problem and it is just so pervasive that the only thing to do is to go and solve it yourself. So first of all, kudos to you for doing that. What I would love for you to do is tell people just a little bit about pounds, how many people you care for, how you do that, how you pay for it, because I know some of the clinicians in the audience are a little curious. And then can you give us an example of a patient who is enrolled in Pounds and using SInDyXR, because I think our audience is still waiting for kind of a description of what their experience would be like if they were a patient in your practice using augmented reality to be treated.
Sure. So we started Pounds about 8 years ago in our kitchen with just an idea about educating people with nutrition and just lifestyle changes. And we grew the practice to There are 3 offices now in central Connecticut. We aligned ourselves with a national women's health organization, and we're doing some pilot offices now with them. We're in the process of looking to open up in Summit County out in Colorado and have a couple other opportunities. We see tens of thousands of people. All of our patients, about 99%, come into the practice and have insurance coverage. So we have a national billing team that verifies everybody's insurance. And then with all the metabolic issues that they're dealing with, we accept insurance. So we don't really deal with the cash practice, which is good and bad. It's a little bit more of a headache for us, but we certainly get a lot more people in, and that includes Medicare and Medicaid patients.
Good.
And our nutritional plans can use SNAP and food stamps and all of that stuff. So there's not like any financial restrictions that people have when they come in to learn about nutritional changes that they could make in order to get themselves off of medications like insulin and the statins and that sort of thing. So that's what we do, and that's how we got here.
Charles, before you move on, I want to reiterate this for our audience. There are many for-profit groups out there, right, that are working on what we are going to call metabolic rehabilitation, but that is also focused on kind of weight loss, diabetes control, sugar control, pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, right? What Charles has done is actually quite unique and really important. It is the opportunity to address social determinants of health, which are so essential to polychronic disease, at the same time that they are offering medical care. And so if we look at polychronic disease, probably 15% of the population who has that polychronic disease make up 50% of the healthcare utilization in any average kind of provider payer practice. And so, that I think is incredibly important, that when you have diabetes and maybe some COPD and some heart disease and overweight, and you're trying to deal with all of these things together, your zip code is somewhat more important in terms of your likelihood of doing well than your medical care. And so addressing those social determinants of health and SNAP and taking food stamps and being able to help people change their diet, not just give them more insulin, is incredibly important. So Charles, just a huge kudos to you for setting this up in a way that just speaks to equity long before, the equity conversation really came to the helm. So sorry, I just had to say that. Keep going, Charles. So
yeah, thanks a lot for understanding, everything that we've done. Sometimes I quickly gloss over it because everything's happening so fast, but then, clinicians like you just step back and are like, are you kidding me? That's so interesting and unique and cool. And it does make us stop here at Pounds and be like, yeah, it is neat. I mean, there's probably over 500 physicians that refer into our practice right now. And, trying to decide what direction is best for us and not losing the most important piece, which is making sure that you take care of patients first. Just physicians embracing the idea that you can get people off medicine. You don't have to keep layering this stuff on. And patients are becoming more and more advocates for themselves and for their own health. And we as clinicians have to do a really good job listening to them. So I just want to acknowledge, thank you for, taking the time to appreciate, the small steps that we've made here in Connecticut. So in any case, because we're an independent
reality, here it comes. All right, everybody's ready.
Because we're an independent practice, we don't have to go through a lot of hoops and boards and that sort of thing to try out new creative stuff. And so when I'm going to call him Kirby, because it's always weird to say my own name and be talking to somebody else. So when Kirby came on board and showed us what augmented reality could do for the practice, we were in the process of just getting used to Zoom meetings with COVID and going kind of virtual. And so this was kind of like a blow you away idea with regards to you don't have to be I call it flat Stanley screen with Zoom. You could actually put these goggles on and be in a room with a patient having conversation with them, and the patient could be whatever they wanted. So a lot of patients, think, oh man, I got to go see a doctor that specializes in metabolic rehabilitation. And a lot of those patients are interested in weight loss. And they might not have, the kind of the kind of transportation they need or the spirit that they need to just walk through the door of our office, because walking through the door to a practice like ours can be sometimes an experience that people don't want to have. And so when you go into augmented reality, Kirby's way in which he's done it allows patients to be whatever they want. They can be like a figure and they can move around our rooms as if we're all there together, but I can't see what they look like. And to some degree, that might be a good thing for some patients because they can still sort of learn the kind of information that we have to offer. We can go through the lab data that they have. And it's really been an amazing experience. And just to get to one of your points with regards to patients that we've been able to see success with regards to what Kirby's done, my mind immediately goes to a patient who actually had come in to be seen, and just prior to her appointment with us, she had attempted suicide, and she was a 17-year-old woman who was dealing with the stresses of being overweight and these kind of things. So we were kind of on the fence as to whether or not this kind of patient really wanted to learn about the things that we knew when it came to lifestyle changes and trying to impact her life and make her life better. A lot of the difficulties this young patient was dealing with had to do with her relationship with her mother. And we identified that and wanted to separate the mother and daughter. Kirby happened to be in our office with his devices, the Oculus goggles. And the daughter went down into our kitchen, our teaching kitchen here at Pounds, and put the goggles on. He introduced her to a calming app that he had loaded up on one of the platforms that we were working with. And the girl came out of the calming app like smiling and just like, this is not what I expected to be doing at a doctor's office. And it was just, she felt like, okay, there's a way in which she can escape from where she was, find a place where she could feel more relaxation. And then we could communicate better with her with regards to some of the things that we had to deal with, like insulin resistance. So it was just a really unique experience that that particular patient had. And I've got plenty of other stories to share, but that was one that just, I can say it was definitely something that impacted a young adolescent person. And I think that that's the direction that this potentially could take us.
So I'm learning all sorts of new things right now about Kirby and SInDyXR. So and the use of it. So the things that you've discussed so far, and maybe if there's one of those videos that works right now, start thinking about that, Kirby. But what I'm hearing is that this is an opportunity. First of all, there is such a stigma still associated with overweight and obesity in this country, right? And so all those who have real disease, insulin resistance metabolic syndrome. And it's not just, I don't eat the right food. That's not what this is. But it's hard to walk into a clinic. My patients say, I don't want to go to a weight clinic. I don't want to go, even if we call it metabolic rehab, they kind of know what that is. So the first thing I heard is that they can virtually see you. They can see themselves how they want or portray themselves as some version of an avatar that you see, and then still learn everything they need to learn. And so that's overcoming one of the hugest barriers, which is just that stigma of either walking into the office or having to be seen, which sometimes is challenging. But the second was completely different. You just used it to calm down a patient before you were able to converse with them. And then you did the conversation in person, I'm gathering. So maybe then this is a good time to get a sense of what SInDyXR can do. And then if you can list kind of the things that you use it for at Pounds, that would be great. So shall we do? We don't have enough time for multiple 4-minute videos, Kirby. So I'm going to let you.
Just for the clinicians that are out there, probably I don't know what Kirby's going to show you, but just so they can understand what he does. But he creates a cube, which is a room which has walls, ceiling, and a floor. And on those walls, he can create content that you want to introduce to your patients. So on one wall, he could create a series of sort of presentations, calming apps or exercise apps or some kind of video content that you as a clinician think it's important for a patient to see. On another wall, you could build a wall out of recipes that patients like to eat, and on another wall you could do. So the cube is it's a room where he can create content under your direction, and the patients can consume that content with these goggles on however they want. It's wild, and you could be there, and give them direction. So I just wanted to kind of break it down for the not so tech savvy people, because I'm one of those people.
We appreciate that. Actually, that's great.
I put my head on really big, and I'm just going to underscore this because I think it was lost in the beginning. We are having VR and AR virtual doctor's visits. This is not in the future. This is not make-believe. It's insane that you can have a full-on, put goggles over your face and visit Dr. Cavo. And then instead of being like, oh, what are these labs? How do I engage? And then Dr. Cavo being like, turning the screen in an awkward way. We are having immersive virtual doctor's visits. It's insane. So the future is here. And I want to say also a big thank you to Dr. Borby for watching from Colorado, as you always do. And also thank you to Dr. Kristen. She also says it's incredible what we have, what the Charleses have accomplished. So happy more and more doctors take this into consideration, the digital opportunities. Dr. Kristen says she's neuroscience at AbbVie. So thank you for watching. Sorry, over to the rest of the conversation. And also, please feel free to let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and any comments or questions that you have for our guests.
Wonderful. All right, Kirby, over to you. You feel free to take a couple 30-second clips out of multiple videos, whatever you think that we need to.
I'm just going to scrub through because it's such a visual medium. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what Dr. Cavo is talking about, is an individual cube, kind of like a 6-sided Pinterest board that you create for yourself, for your practice, your patient. Each individual patient can have multiple cubes, and we have people in all sorts of industries doing different sorts of things with this. So, this healthcare thing is, you guys need to run with this. I don't know what you're going to do with this, but this is one of, Dr. Cavo's patients in a cube. That's them clicking on a 360 video of me shopping at the Stop and Shop, and because the nutritionist. And then this is a 360 video of his buddy giving inspiration to their, to that patient, like the kind of like vibe that patient needs, right? And then let's see.
This is incredible.
And then
so
this is them going on.
Visit,
exactly.
Comfortable, relaxing space so that they're not like fight or blood pressure.
Exactly. So you meet in these cubes, and these cubes can look like different things. We have different cubes that look like more like doctors' offices, quote unquote, or do you know what I mean? Like, let me just scrub through this one, right? So here's 2D asynchronous, amazing video, right? This is one of the amazing registered dietitians that, you know what I mean? Like, has hundreds of these videos on the Pounds Transformation website. Let me just mute this and narrate quickly, because we can pound through this. You guys can watch these on SInDyXR.com or, anywhere. There's tons of this going on, and you guys should use it. It's there for your patients to succeed. But that's the 2D. And then you get this sort of 3D thing. Here's me checking into an intake with Dr. Cavo. But the thing that's important is that this is 360 video, right? So this is where it's asynchronous communication, but the patient, the viewer, is able to see, oh, what would it be like if I actually went in and saw Dr. Cavo? And I can control my eye line, but actually I can't control the video, right, or the content. Then you get into VR, where, okay, here's a meeting where Dr. Cavo is explaining to everybody about the new hospital he's building or whatever it is. You can see the pins on the wall there. And then essentially this is, and I'm trying to use those little icons on the left to kind of give you a clue of what we're doing, because, it's not easy. But, oh, okay, cool. Here's the inside. Now everybody who's in that thing in that meeting, in that cube, and the cubes are secure. And we actually have been working with an RPM with DocSync to keep the HIPAA compliance part of it on. We're not collecting personal data. This is just simply a space to be in that the doctor can populate it. And SInDyXR is 100% committed to not keeping any of your information. It's a huge firewall issue for us, not to mention the fact that Apple and GDPR are going in the right direction, and we support that. But what if I'm flipping out about my MRI that's coming up? Okay, well, let's desensitize that. Let's give you that experience in VR, which if you do suspend your disbelief, you actually kind of believe you've been there before, and it's not that big a deal, maybe. And then you get into what is my favorite part of it, which is the AR, the augmented reality, which, right, do you define your phone as augmented reality? I mean, in my book, any pane of glass, including the shields and the things, ought to be lit up and giving us extra information, right? So SInDyXR is not doing any surgical theater stuff. We're leaving that to GE and some amazing other people who are actually practicing cutting into people, and you guys can do that. But we're focused in on the human, the collaboration, right? How do you actually play a game on your phone, track your, I don't know, whatever, BioSense, keto, ACEs, glucose at the moment that you weighed in? And then you start to overlap. So here you see on the left, you see the VR way in. On the right, you see an AR way in, like a 360 way in. And then here, okay, so these are real pepperoni chips that one of the amazing dietitians at Pounds connected. But here's me in VR being like, well, what about apples? And so all of a sudden we're overlapping these kinds of worlds. And I can't tell you how many times I've watched Dr. Cavo do this next thing, which is, stand at a whiteboard and write little tiny words on a thing. And all I can think of is like, have you ever taught to more than 100 people, dude? This is not, you know what I mean? Like, but if I can overlay his layers of communication with VR and then with 360 and then with AR and with the SinDyCube, he can actually just build his own version of whatever combo he wants of all of these things that we've gotten into.
That is incredible.
So that's kind of the vibe that we're going for.
I mean, I like your whiteboard thing, but
no.
I'm sorry. My mind is blown right now. Right? I just have to say this is incredible. So I don't even know where to start. You really got me here, Kirby. So we can interact with our patients through this. We can teach our patients through this. We can give you content we have already created, which we are all trying to figure out, how do I get all this content and education to my patients such that they can take it in at their own time in a way that makes sense.
If I may, you're not giving it to us. We're not capturing this is all like Pinterest, right? It's like you can keep it on your server, your RPM, your stuff. You guys already have all of that stuff.
That's great. And you will just help me. You will help me get this to my patient.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, we've spent an incredible amount of dev recently when Dr. Cavo was like, you can't collect any personal information. I'm like, how the heck am I going to do that? Well, an amazing team, you know what I mean, like that has signed up with me and followed me. I mean, we're talking about a company of 12 people here. So I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, and some of them go and do other jobs that pay a lot more. So God thank my team. I know some of them are watching but the point is that we all committed to like healthcare, because who knew? Theater people and film people who've been using this for a couple of years didn't care whether you knew where they were. Actually, we kind of like to be tracked, but in your world, we can't do that, right? So how do we leave that to the remote patient monitoring and make remote patient monitoring a genuine, richer thing that actually is sustainable? Because Zoom fatigue is that happened within 3 months. We all were tired of that crap. So let's do a better job.
True.
That's really
so
my
here
goal is.
So first of all, this is amazing, and Charles, and thank you. As I'm thinking about this, other thoughts that come to mind is the level of health-related anxiety has gone through the roof. It was high before, it is even higher now. And so you showed, an example. You told a story, Charles, about the patient who had kind of anxiety and depression to the point of attempted suicide. Charles Kirby, you showed the MRI suite and how frightened people are of getting tests, but how great would it be if you could tour the facility, if you will, as many times as you wanted before you actually went in there, therefore knowing what that process was going to be like. I think, all of our radiology staff who sometimes watches this show with me is like, yes, Dr. Bhatt, please, because I get a lot of calls saying, your patient's really nervous, can you come down, can you talk to them? And I'm always happy to, but gosh, wouldn't it be a better patient experience if they knew what healthcare was going to look like for them? So there is so much we can do. And then just having content on the walls, having content that people, having content on the walls. Right.
When I first saw this with Kirby coming into our office, I immediately thought how amazing it would be to put the goggles on and walk somebody into the hospital for an MRI or a CT scan or a procedure, because it totally desensitizes you. When you put those goggles on, you're basically there and he's walking you through it. It's amazing.
I am not walking you through it. I am not walking.
You did for my example when I was just like,
but it's.
Are you kidding me?
No, I love you. I love you. But I'm just saying we must be clear that we put the patient in the place to succeed on her own. Right? She picked up our mobile app. This is amazing. If I might just tell my side of the story. The dietitian is dealing with the mother and the daughter in the lobby, and it's the mother's turn to go in, and the daughter needs something to do for 20 minutes or whatever, and they say, we have these VR headsets down the hall, and I happen to be there, so I click in. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, sign up, play the game. She plays the game. Her avatar is immediately set as Beyonce because of the way that she answered the questions, and immediately I knew she was a musical theater person. And I said to her, without even looking at, anything, I just said, oh, what's your gig? You know what I mean? And she's like, oh, I love Rent, blah, blah, blah. She goes in and she starts crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am incredibly unqualified for this moment, except for just as an empathetic human being. And then I say, hey, look, we have this app. It's called Trip, TRIPP. It's an award-winning app. It's not made by me, you know what I mean? But why don't you just take a moment here? I hand her the headset. She gets oriented because it's native, right? You know what I mean? She's 20 something. It's native technology to her. I leave the room, right? I mean, she's on her own better place, safe and controlled in the sense that the nutritionist, the provider, was able to give that to her because she's in her own Cindy cube, and it had that kind of a pin. Just simply, hey, this might help you. Because they know her, they know her diagnosis, they know all the stuff that Dr. Cavo and his team had done. So that's the kind of thing that I think, I don't know why every doctor's office doesn't have VR equipment in it. I'll be glad to help. Cindy, I mean, but seriously.
Yeah, definitely. Got
but
it.
I'm not, it just is a no-brainer because it exists and you'd be foolish not to use it.
This is beautiful. And really, I just love what you guys are doing. And Dr. Van Immen, again, thank you for watching. It is close to time and we have to leave. We are excited to be streaming live starting on Thursday morning and Friday morning. Thursday morning and Friday morning from the Convergence Forum. Charles Kirby, I love what you do. Thank you for sharing that. Look forward to having you.
No, seriously, I'm so excited.
Look forward to having you back on the site on our show. And Dr. Cavo, as always, trailblazing in so many ways, taking care of patients, really doing innovative work. Just delighted to have you on the show.
Tom's transformation is amazing. I say as a patient, just telling you that too.
I feel like I should join Tom's transformation just to hang out with you guys. Want to say a big thank you to our audience for joining, and Dr. Bhatt for joining us or hosting the show while also speaking at the MedTech. Thank you, everybody. See you next time, or Thursday morning for a special edition live on the case.
See you Thursday.